You do. The reason being is this right here. Demuslim's going to run in and he's going to start massacring peasants. And they have defend, so honestly, even if he has towers, it's really not going to do that much damage. Nilknarf's very intelligent in how he chooses to deal with the situation. And me personally, I jump the gun all too often on TPs. I would have TP'd back and chased them away. But really, if you think about it, that really wouldn't have done too much good in this case, because really he has militia at his base, and losing a couple peasants in the long run when you're fast expanded isn't going to cost you as much as you really think it would. If you'll notice, as soon as Nilknarf's army shows up, Demuslim is pretty much in the troubles and is going to be forced to run away. He only lost maybe 5 or 6 peasants, and that's not too big of a deal because when you're expanded and below 50 food, you can afford to lose that. He does get a nice peasant surround. I've explained it before. You surround by using the Q key, pretty basic stuff. Both players are going to be doing teching to tier 3. The one thing I noticed that's very amazing about human mirror replays at a high level is how incredibly intelligent they are with how they do things. They're both teching to tier 3, straight up. If you look, they're both teching to tier 3. Their timings are slightly off, only because Nilknarf teched a little slower because he made an arcane tower before teching, whereas Demuslim didn't. That's the main difference in where their tech speed comes from, because that extra 70 lumber costs Nilk a good probably 20 or 30 seconds for his tech, where he wasn't teching. Nilknarf is being a lot more opportunistic than Demuslim in his creeping this game. And he's being a lot, in my opinion, just a lot smarter. As soon as MK comes out, basically Nilk just has to run. He just has to book it. If MK versus no MK is pretty much a losing fight, and you have a lot more chances for your hero to get surrounded, more so than anything else. And so Nilk's going to lose a lot of foots because of this, and almost get his AM surrounded, but he does manage to run away there. I don't know, maybe he's going to get his AM surrounded. Yeah, no. He lives. One of the most interesting things about MK Wars, I believe, is that when you're in an actual MK Wars fight, one of the most important things is using your bolts wisely. If your bolt comes first, they're not going to have their second bolt until their MK isn't stunned. One of the most important things you need to know is that focusing down the other person's MK is probably the most valuable tool you have in terms of winning fights. Now, it looked like Nilk had incurred very severe losses from Demuslim, whereas, you know, it almost appeared like it wasn't really working out well at all for Nilk, and that he was actually losing the game. But if you now look, he's actually had made quite a comeback, and with his MK, he managed to score a hero kill as well as many footman kills. So you really can't beat the judge of the game quite so easy, especially in this case. Demuslim using Sorks very well. He definitely does not have these Sorks on autocast, by the way. He turned off autocast, and he uses a slow key to slow specific units that he's going to be able to, that he knows he's going to be able to kill. He slowed the AM, and if you look at the AM's HP currently, it is quite low. And just with that in mind, you're going to be able to notice how Nilknarf was forced to run away and ended up losing many of his footmen. Both of their strategies this game will be mass griffins. If you look, both of them are producing griffins and priests. I think, personally, on this map and matchup, griffins are very interesting, because you think heavy air, and you think, okay, all races have a counter to heavy air, right? Okay. If you're going straight heavy air like this, griffins versus anything, let's say you scout your opponent going griffins. Okay, fine. That's bad. You need to counter griffins. Let's think about this. What counters griffins? D-Hawks and gyros, and rifle caster. Rifle caster in large numbers versus griffins in large numbers, I'd say griffins win. So I don't really agree with the choice of going, personally don't agree with the choice of going rifle caster versus griffins. Especially on a map like Lost Temple, it's just really not that effective of a strategy. Perhaps D-Hawks, right? So you'd think D-Hawks would be a very successful counter to griffins, but the problem is they can counter your D-Hawks by making D-Hawks as well as soon as you scout them. So they're going to have 3 griffins and an equal amount of D-Hawks. So if you think about it, why would you ever try and counter Griffins, you'd be down in food to begin with. So really, it's not the wisest choice in the world. And one of the more intelligent things you could do is probably just mass Griffins back and hope you can micro better, because theoretically nothing really counters Griffins if you don't scout it early enough. And if you're both going Griffins to begin with, then all you're ending up with is a micro war. And Nook's micro, I would say, is vastly superior to Demuslim's, especially in this game, if not anything else. Both players made workshops. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe or I think just Nook did. Yeah, just Nook made workshops. Probably to scout with gyros to scout expos, or to make gyros to further counter Griffins. Gyros do counter Griffins, but they're really not good for much else. I guess you can kill buildings and stuff, but I mean, I don't really see it as being as worth it. The army of the Muslim is a lot bigger than Nook's army. So right now what Nook's basically trying to do is just focus down as much weak units as he can, to where he's going to have the ability to keep his army alive as long as possible. Right? So this is basically an all-out micro war at this point. Nook using great use of the staff, passing it between all three heroes. Whenever you have a staff, you only need one. You can just right-click it and pass it to your hero right after you use it. It only takes a couple seconds. It's really not that bad at all. Nook is able to very effectively drive back to Muslim here by focusing all the weak units in his army, and keeping all of his Griffins alive through staff abuse. Whenever you see something get focused, heal it with your Paladin. If it's still alive, heal it with your Paladin again. Back it up. Bring it back. Heal it with your Paladin. If they keep focusing it and you can't heal it anymore, you staff it out, and they just wasted all of their army's DPS focusing a unit that they were never going to kill. So it is very, very, very extremely remarkably important that you have a staff and a Paladin, especially in human versus human if you're going tier 3. There's absolutely no reason not to get a third hero as a Paladin. And I don't know, to be quite honest, I mean, it seems sort of silly to not just make your second hero or your third hero, especially when you're going tier 3. Like, it doesn't make sense at all. Demuslim pretty much got worked, and he's trying to go D-Hawks. This is a mistake by Demuslim. I don't usually like saying pros are making mistakes, but it is a mistake to try and attempt D-Hawks at this point in the game. Essentially what Nook's going to be able to do with such a few number of D-Hawks is he's going to repeatedly bolt each individual D-Hawk and then focus them with the remaining Griffins. This will either force Demuslim to staff them out, or make it so that he will have no ability whatsoever, no DPS or stopping power against the Griffins themselves. So I mean, when it comes right down to it, late D-Hawks is really just not straight up not a counter to Griffins, especially in this case. It doesn't really do much of anything. If you notice now, what Nook Knife's doing is he basically